But, we have the resources. We have hope. I think everybody thinks things are good. There's some challenges on the horizon, but let's really back up, think about it, and what can we put in place to utilize those monies so if they go away or if they go down or when they go down, we're not caught in that boom bust cycle.
Yeah. All right. Welcome to the CCC News Podcast. Today we'll be interviewing Robb Van Cleave, who is going for the commissioner's position #1. Voters in Wasco County are going to see a crowded and competitive race in the May 19th primary election. We were talking about that. 7 candidates vying for 2 different seats in the Wasco County Commission race. And Robb Van Cleave, who has been a stalwart in this community. I would say you've been in and out of different government bodies and nonprofits and that kind of thing for many years. So Van Cleave enters the race with decades of experience in local government, including leadership at both the city and county level. He served 5 times as mayor of the Dalles. I believe you were maybe the youngest mayor ever elected in the Dalles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And you helped guide the community through periods of growth, infrastructure investment, economic development. I know you were in there shortly after the aluminum plant closed and that kind of thing, so you got to enjoy those years. He also previously served as Wasco County HR Admin Services, giving him direct experience overseeing county operations, managing budgets, and working with elected officials on policy and implementation. Today, Van Cleave is serving as the Klickitat County Administrator, a role that places him at the center of day-to-day county governance across the river in Washington. In that position, he oversees departmental operations, budget development, personnel, and strategic planning, offering a current hands-on perspective on how county governments function. In addition to his public sector leadership, Van Cleave brings a background as a senior-level human resources professional with experience in organizational management and workforce development, with experience spanning city leadership, county administration, and regional government operations. Van Cleave is positioning himself as a candidate focused on fiscal oversight, efficient government, and long-term planning. And Robb, I mean, you've done a few other things too. I believe you served on the Mid-Columbia Medical Center board at the hospital here.
Yeah, when I started out on the board, it was still MCMC, and I was vice chair, and then we transitioned into Adventist Health.
Yeah.
And under their new structure, then I transitioned to the, I was vice chair and then chair of MCMC, and then transitioned back to vice chair under their new structure.
Very good.
Yeah, and I was on there 5 years.
5 years, yeah. And then when we were talking briefly before getting started today, you said you were most proud of some of your work with Wounded Warrior.
Yeah, I've always, throughout my elected and appointed career, tried to, I'm not a veteran. I didn't serve. My father did, my grandfather. And I've always tried to honor the veterans, whatever bully pulpit I happened to be on. And I was honored to be one of the 2 non-veterans serving on the Wounded Warrior National Board on the East Coast. And it was just a very humbling experience to serve with the men and women that have served in the armed forces and have been wounded. And it's a great organization and very humbling. Locally, I was a port commissioner, chamber president, so I've been lucky to serve in a lot of roles in the community, but the Wounded Warrior, I think, was the one that touched my heart the most.
All right. Excellent. All right. Well, let's jump into it. I'm going to grab some questions here. So the first one we're starting out with is on housing. Housing costs and limited supply are repeatedly cited as one of the county's most urgent problems. A proposal has been floated for the county to help finance projects such as Mary Hanlon's Basalt Commons through a loan or similar tool. Would you support the county using public financing tools such as loans, guarantees, or revolving housing funds to accelerate projects like Basalt Commons?
Well, I think there's various pieces to that question. So housing, there's various kinds of housing. I mean, there's a shortage of housing stock, both at the affordable level, the workforce level, and then just general housing stock. So I think, we kind of have to break it down. Are we talking about senior housing? Are we talking about affordable housing? Are we talking about workforce housing? But yes, I think the government, I think the county in particular, should always be open. The city is always open to listening to a proposal. I kind of have an aversion to county government being in the real estate business. But I also remember back when Habitat for Humanity, the county had surplus property, and the city did as well, and they would, give that property over to those projects. So I think we always should be open to a project, and then look at the details of who it's serving. And the Basalt Commons, I don't think it's affordable housing. I think it's just housing, market driven housing, and that's fine. I'm not sure what role the county should have in that, but it'll be decided long before the election. And the current county commissioners are going to make a decision, and everybody will support whatever decision comes out of that. And that project's been on the books a long time. So I just think you have to look at each project and the merits. I've not met her. Read about the project. I watched when they got the extension at the urban renewal. I listened to Mr. Gomez talk, and I thought what he said made some sense about the extensions and the viability of the project. So I think each project stands on its own merits, serves its own audience, and we just have to look at them individually. And then county government can bring a lot to the table, whether it be a piece of property, whether it be access to
and to that leads into my next question. Let me ask it real quick.
Sure.
So we'll just go. So what is the single most effective lever a county commissioner can pull through zoning, land use changes, incentives, or partnerships to significantly increase affordable housing in the next 5 years?
I think it's important. Affordable housing is definitely something that's holding us back. And frankly, when I worked at the Association of Oregon Counties as their chief operating officer, I worked with all the counties in Oregon, and it's not unique to us. It's a big issue. And my answer is going to be, and I hope you hear some type of similar answer from the other candidates. A single county commissioner can't really do anything, right? It takes two, at least, to make a decision. Now, a single county commissioner can have influence and input and ask questions and support projects, but I don't really see a single lever that a individual commissioner can pull. Now, the land use issue is, of course, set by the planning commission and the county commission. Funding issues, zoning, all of those. I think they're all important. But there is really not something a single commissioner can do. And frankly, and I'll probably respond to some of the other questions along this line too, sometimes the best role of government's to get out of the way. And I think, I used to work with Sherry Holliday, the former mayor of Maupin and county commissioner. And she taught me when government needs to get involved and when we need to step back and let other folks take the lead. And then we have a role. It's just not always the primary role. So I think it's, so I don't think there's any one. And I think each project, 67% of the population lives in an incorporated community in this county. So they have their own rules. They have their own elected bodies, and the county doesn't overrule them. And so we're a support in many cases. Building in the unincorporated areas or outside of an incorporated city, the county would probably have a bigger role because of the infrastructure needs. But I think it's there's no single lever, and it takes a majority. And when you got 7 people running for 2 positions, we don't even know what the majority is going to look like. Yeah. So.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to jump into wildfire issues. So the 2025 Rowena fire forced evacuations for thousands of residents and destroyed dozens of structures in the Rowena area. What specific investments or policy changes would you prioritize to ensure Wasco County is better prepared for the next large wildfire, particularly in evacuation planning, fuel reduction, and infrastructure protection?
And I think, you've mentioned 3 of the important ones. And I was thinking about that question. We had a similar fire across the river, the Bourdoin fire, and it's a tragedy on both sides. It's a horrible event. And I'm proud of both sides of the river, how they've pulled together to help the citizens and help people get back on their feet. And I think that's the important thing. These fires are complicated, and no two fires are the same. So the Mosier fire a couple of years ago was different than the fire in Rowena. The fire that went down Ty Ridge towards the fairgrounds year before last was different. A wheat fire outside of Dufur is a whole different. It's a whole different event. So I'm not sure there's one answer that will deal with all of the fires. I think the county emergency management, of course, the county has a leading role in that, but which is through the sheriff. The county sets the policy, or the commissioners can set policy, and then the sheriff is actually the emergency management director. And so the evacuation, the ready, set, go, all of that is under the sheriff, and I think Sheriff McGill does a great job. So the county's role there is to make sure the sheriff has the resources that he needs to deal with those emergencies. And then, one of the greatest powers of I wouldn't even call it a power, one of the greatest tools that commissioners have is the convening authority. And that is to get the right people in the room to talk about the issues. So fire reduction, fuel reduction, protecting structures. If it's a fire out in the rangeland, there's not a lot of structures. It's a whole different approach to the fire. One thing I don't see people talking about a lot is that at the airport, the Washington DNR has the choppers based there, and Oregon bases the fire bosses.
Right.
And I think we all should agree that that's one of the greatest assets we have available to both sides of the river, is because they generally fly, whether it be a fire on public land or private land or in the national forest, and we're really lucky to have them over there. Now, the city and Klickitat County jointly own and operate the airport, and I don't know if there's a role for Wasco County, whether they've ever been asked, not in the operation or the ownership. I doubt they would want to get involved in that. But, with those fire assets over there, and they're involved in almost every type of fire, is there something Wasco County can bring to the table to facilitate that and help that? I know one thing they're trying to do is the retardant-based planes are based in either Redmond or Yakima. I was at the Mosier fire, and when they built they dropped that retardant and basically saved Mosier, it's 45 minutes back to fill up and then to come back. And, and so there's talk about trying to get one of those planes based here, and that would be a game changer in addition to the choppers.
And you think the county might be able to play a role in that?
I don't know if they've been asking. I don't know if they've offered, but I've had people ask me at the fire board or at the airport board, well, how come Wasco County is not participating, and I don't know, maybe they've never been asked, but, again, for advocacy, I think that might be something that should be looked into.
All right. Very good. Very good. What is your plan to stabilize long-term funding for rural fire districts so they have the equipment and staffing necessary to protect remote communities?
It's a good question. And again, I'll keep coming back to they all have their own boards. So I don't think a commissioner or the commissioners should have the answers. They should ask the questions and then let those districts tell us what they need. Do they need funding? Do they need equipment? What is it they need? And I think that applies to a lot of different things. But, for the county to come in and say, well, we know what your problem is. I had a questionnaire in South County, and they said, what are the top 3 challenges for South County and what you're going to do about it? And I said, last time I checked, people in South County didn't like to be told what to do, and so I don't think that's my role or our role but to listen and to find out what their needs are. They may be the same, and it may be something that we can do. Funding's always an issue, or maybe they may be unique, and the county will bring different things to bear. Yeah. And so I think we have to listen. I've known a lot of county commissioners, and I think the most effective ones are the ones that listened, and to find out what the problems are, and then talk to the people that are impacted and to work on a solution. I just think that's the best approach. Very good. It's going to be my approach.
Can you give me an example of maybe, not necessarily, I don't want to put words in the mouths of another district or something like that, but like what might be that little piece of help that maybe a district might need that the county could offer? Anything specific?
Well, I know a lot of times, or at least these small districts are volunteer. You know, some may have paid staff. Most of them, I think, are volunteer. Typically, their equipment becomes hand-me-down from a different agency, state government or federal government, or a fire district, the bigger fire district like the Dalles or Wasco that has trading out their equipment. So I think could be capital investments in their equipment, could be training for the volunteers, could be equipment. Sometimes the equipment they wear is very expensive, and maybe the county is able to fund that or seek funding for that. And so, but you know, I think there's commonalities, but there's probably differences, and we should ask them what they need.
Okay. Very good. Well, on that same train of thought, we have a lot of different water districts in the county. And are there specific roles should the county play in helping small water districts secure funding, technical expertise, or long-term sustainability for drinking water systems?
Yeah, absolutely. I think last time I looked, there's about 17 different kind of water districts. Half of those are drinking water, and the other ones are irrigation districts and conservation districts, and they're all important, and they all serve a valuable need. I would apply the same thing. They all have boards, whether they be associations or member-based boards or elected boards, special districts in Oregon, and I think they individually know what the issues are. And then so I think we need to listen. I think we need to get the right people in the room, find out what the issues are, and then how can the county help? What is it they need? And I just think that's the best way. I'm very respectful of other boards.
Yeah, it sounds like you don't like prescription, rather listening and.
Well,
help me fill that out.
You and I were talking, earlier. I learned a long time ago. I don't have all the answers. I don't even know all the questions. Yeah. And you get the right people in the room, and we dealt with that when I was the mayor, and the aluminum plant closed, and we had the highest unemployment in the state, if not the nation, and all of the entities, we had no place to go but up. So the county and the city and the chamber and the college and the PUD and the port, we all got together and said, we got to work together, and we did, and the results are all over the place, not by any individual, definitely not by me as mayor, but by the collective group and the think. And I think when an incorporated city elects their councilors and mayor, or a board is elected for a fire district or a water district, we should listen to them. They're the experts on the ground. They know what they need, and our role is not to go in there and lord over them. It's to assist them and help them when we can. And they all have different needs. So
very good. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about data centers. They're a big deal here in our local community. Google's data centers have become the county's largest taxpayer and major economic force. Maybe you caught our last story. The latest data center to come online paid $9.8 million in fees and taxes in the last tax year. So how should Wasco County balance the economic benefits of large industrial investments like data centers with concerns about water use, infrastructure demands, and transparency in tax incentives?
Yeah, I think those are all important, and I know for a fact it goes on in each and every case. I was on the team that helped negotiate the first
in 2005 to 7.
Yeah, when 2004 I think is when we were meeting with them, and but that time, the aluminum plant was closed. We'd been caught in the cycle of plant opening and closing, and that impact on the community, and we needed to look for something more stable. And at the time, Google was innovative. I mean, we were ahead of the pack on bringing a data center in, and I want to mention, Google's not the enemy here. They've dealt with, 3 or 4 mayors, probably a dozen or more counselors over the years in the last 20 years, and 8 or 9 different commissioners. And so I think they've done everything they've been asked to do and agreed to do. And so it's, they're doing what they were asked to do and what they agreed to do. It has grown the water use. I initially was concerned about pumping treated water into the aquifer. I've tried to look into it a little bit and listen to you a little bit. Oregon has very strict rules about that, some of the strictest in the nation. And I trust the city staff and that we're doing it the right way. I trust Google we're doing it the right way. But it does use a lot of water and a lot of power. There are new data centers that do not use the volume of water that this one does. They all use a lot of energy, but so different ways to do it. But I think that we always have to balance the impact. And, there isn't any more available industrial land to that size. I think we have 80 acres. I think there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
The Port District is very big, but the buildable land supply is not.
Right.
And so I think having another data farm or having another employer that large is going to be, it's probably going to be a rare event.
Mm-hmm.
But even smaller employers have impacts, and in the county that's the impacts on the roads, impact on the resources, and we have land use laws already in place, zoning already in place, but you have to find that balance. And we want the jobs. Somebody was talking about Google, and I said, man, we had 14% unemployment at one time. And so when Google came to town, it was like, it's clean. And, because we knew the port was going to take a while to fill up based on the economy at the time. And it was a good deal. It was a good deal at the time. And at least for the deals we struck, they did what they said they were going to do. In terms of transparency, I was the only elected official involved in that first go-around not to sign a non-disclosure.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not saying that to say that the other ones shouldn't have. They had to. It's just normal operations when you're dealing with a big private employer. And I talked to them. Mm-hmm. I felt like one of us should not sign the non-disclosure. And I've never been on the Google property. Many elected folks have, and that's great. I know a lot of people that work out there. I just felt it wasn't right that everybody involved who was an elected official could not talk to the public.
Right. And
so I didn't sign the non-disclosure. So at some point I had to pull out of the negotiations. I trusted the other elected officials, and they did a good job. But I pulled myself out of that because I just thought the optics alone were terrible.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
For me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Very good. And that kind of leads us into another, maybe what we call a happy problem. But Wasco County faces the challenges of diversifying beyond a few large employers. But what specific industries or economic sectors should the county actively recruit or invest in over the next decade?
See, I think we need to reimagine how we do economic development. I think. You didn't ask me, and that's good. I get asked a lot, well, what's your agenda? I don't have an agenda. Mm-hmm. And I'm not making any promises. The only promise I'll make, the only guarantee I'll give people is I'll work hard. I'll listen and I'll work hard. Economic development, I think we should take a look at it. There's other models that we should consider. The Central Oregon Economic Development District does a great job, and it's a partnership between all of the governments, cities and counties, and the private sector.
Okay.
And it's a very proactive economic development. We're more of a facilitative here. The EDC, the Economic Development Commission, does a great job. But what I'm trying to get to is I don't think it's upon me or any individual groups or the commission as a whole to say, we should bring in this type of sector. We should bring that. Because South County, the Wasco, I think it's South Wasco County Alliance, I think it's called.
Yes.
They're gathering data. They're looking at the resources and what's available. Might be different than what Mosier's looking at. Might be different than what Duffer wants to do. Or the other areas, Shannoco, Antelope, all these other communities. Yeah. And so I think we need to listen. And I think if we reimagine how we do economic development, we can have a single vision. Somebody said the other day in Fred Meyer's, well, you guys got a lot done because you had the vision. Well, it wasn't my vision. It was all of our vision, and yet we retained our individuality. So you can have a common vision for Wasco County and not have any community lose what makes them individual. Yeah. And then together, I think we can look and see what kind of industries we should attract and what resources we have available.
Great.
So
Let me back up on that. You said Central Oregon Economic.
I think it's called the Central Oregon Economic Development Organization, and it's not a government a special district. It's a nonprofit. But if you look at who's on the board, it's representatives from the cities and the counties.
So we're talking Bend, Madras, Prineville.
I think we can all agree that the Central Oregon's economy is doing pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah.
And then there's bankers on there, and there's private sector folks, and they just approach it completely different. More probably in a private sector mode than we do. And I'm not criticizing how we do it. We have this money coming in from Google, and maybe not forever,
Right.
but we have it coming in. So let's bring the right people in the room from the private sector and the public sector. Maybe government isn't set up to be, the creative thinkers when it comes to economic development, but we have a role to play. There's no question. Let's bring everybody in the room and create this different approach, or at least talk about it.
Right.
We have the money to fuel it, to get it started, and let's just bring in the right people and the right skill sets. See if we can do something different.
Yeah. Like in that last data center that came online that's now paying taxes, I believe that gap funding was $5,750,000 split equally between the city and the county. And I always look at that like when you have a windfall like that.
Yeah.
Like, how do you make that money work for you, into the future? Like, and so that runs into this next question: how should millions in Google payments to the county, which can be used for anything, be spent? And what's your thinking on that? How do you think the money is it's best spent? Is it infrastructure? Is it something that attracts other people here, or what are your thoughts?
I hate to sound wishy-washy. I think it's all of the above, and I think if we reimagine how we look at economic development, it'll help us lead to that answer. Infrastructure is important. I mean, we need to get product from the farm to the market. We need to get people from home to school. We need to get people to the hospital, and, ambulance service, EMS. So the county definitely has a role in infrastructure, fiber optics, all of these pieces. But I just think we need to reimagine how we package it. When the aluminum plant closed for the last time, I suspect we said then what was said when the mills closed at Tye Valley and Maupin. We need to get out of this cycle. Timber was up and then it was down, and then it was up and it was down. And then the aluminum industry, outside of everybody's control because of power in the markets, it closed and everybody would be out of work for a while. Then it opened back up and it closed. And so with Google, we saw a way to get out of that. Well, look, at the size of Google, now, again, we kind of have this big employer, and if anybody thinks that technology is not going to change, and data farms will change, we need to diversify our economy. I'm not the one to say what that should be, but we have the money coming in from Google now. There's always the argument: do you save it? Do you spend it? Do you use it on a one-time? I think using it to add payroll is not necessarily the best approach, because that cost goes on and gets higher. But, we have the resources. We have hope. I think everybody thinks things are good. There's some challenges on the horizon, but let's really back up, think about it, and what can we put in place to utilize those monies so if they go away, or if they go down, or when they go down, we're not caught in that boom bust cycle.
Yeah.
And if we don't do it now, if you wait, it's too late.
Right.
They need to start talking about that. We need to start talking about that now. And you don't want to save it all for a rainy day. Then how do you define a rainy day? And to save it is just saving it. But if you spend it all, then you don't have any money set aside for opportunity that may come down the road.
So it sounds like you kind of have a happy medium in that scenario, possibly.
Yeah, I just think we need to get the right people in the room, reimagine how we do economic development across the county. I get asked the question, does South County get equal funding to this side of the county? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the formula. I've known all the commissioners for over 30 years. I know they all care deeply for all parts of the county. How money's distributed. If we have $3 million to buy the property for the Basalt Commons, is that our only $3 million? And is there another use? Do the fire districts need it for equipment? Does Maupin needed? Does Duffer need it for fiber optics? I mean, what is the best use of that funding? What's the best bang for the buck? I don't know the answer to that. But I know people, and I always say perception's all there is. If you think the funding's not fair, it's not fair till somebody proves to you it is.
Yeah.
So I think we need to really back up and look at all of that and meet with all these different boards, to find out what the need is and what the opportunities are. So
Very good. Very good. An example of that with the city of the Dalles, there was a big push, if you can remember, a few years back. I want to say about 4 to 5 years ago, for the Grove subdivision up on Richmond and overlooking the dam and such. And the big pushback in that was, hey, we don't have the curbs and sidewalks in to help get those people back and forth, kids to school, that kind of thing, safe places for kids to ride their bikes, that kind of thing. And since that has gone on, the project never got built, but the city has gone ahead and done a lot of infrastructure improvements so that when and if that does come to development, there won't be the same issues that were kind of holding it back, at least in the minds of many in our community. Am I speaking to that chord here in regards to enabling development or economic activity?
I think government definitely has a role. I think the city's done a good job. And I've been mayor for a long time, so I'm not patting myself in the back. I think the current city has done a great job of improving infrastructure, maintaining infrastructure, and putting things in place, improving roads and sidewalks. And I think that's county role too. The county having the roads available for firefighting, for EMS, for farm to market, and I think that's a key role of government. Was it Abe Lincoln said that the role of government is to do for the people what they can't do for themselves, and most folks don't want to put in a mile of sidewalk or the stormwater system that needs to happen. And so I think that is a key function of government, how we can participate. You talk about that project, and it may apply to the Basalt Commons, and if I'm wrong, somebody will tell me, I'm sure. That's a private. If the next person comes in and wants to build 100 homes up on the property the school district owns above the veterans, should we fund that? Should we pay for that? Is it a private sector business deal, and should we be involved in those, or should they stand on their own merit? If they can get funding and finance and get through the zoning issues and all that stuff, then they should build it. And then our role is SDCs and access and egress and all of those kind of issues. But or is there a point where we should stay out of a private project? Yeah. And what is our role?
That changes. That changes. Year to year.
It does change
because
year to year.
If you look at interest rates and some of the big hurdles that big developers have to get over these days, like it appears that they do need some help. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but I mean, from the outside looking in,
a lot of it is SDCs, which I know the city's done a good job on the Basalt trying to help. When I first became mayor, we didn't have sewers on the east end of town. It was still septic systems, and they started to fail. And the city went out there, and we spent the money to extend the sewer past Thompson. And they just built a section of road past Thompson. Yep. And so I think that's a constant effort is to get those infrastructure out to where they go. Before Google came here, and we participated in QLife, which is one of the best things everybody's ever done, was we decided 20 years ago or more that fiber optic was a utility, no different than water and sewer, right? And the PUD we treat, if you look at fiber optics as it's a utility, it's a basic that we have to build in and expand, and QLife's done a wonderful job, and they're expanding to, I don't know, another 900 homes or something, and that's amazing. And that was a grassroots thing. Mm-hmm. How do we put in this fiber optic loop?
Yeah, right.
Google would not have come here if it wasn't for that fiber optic loop, that redundant loop, that dark fiber that was put in. Yeah. And that was the idea of the PUD at the time, so a lot of smart people had good ideas.
Again, and money well spent, right?
Absolutely.
And that's kind of when I'm going back to, you're getting this windfall. You don't know, like you say, the technology, Google, that may change. We may not have those tax dollars or those gap funds in the future. And so how do you best utilize those to propel yourself forward, right?
I think you want to retain enough funds. We have the core role, which is infrastructure in many cases, but be able to react to, there may be a request out there we've never heard before. There may be somebody saying, I've accomplished all of these. I can't get this done.
Yeah.
Whatever it's done.
Whatever that gap
Whatever
is.
that gap is.
Yeah.
And then we should look at it on how it benefits the community as a whole, how it benefits the county as a whole. And they may all be different. It may be a sewer line in one case, egress to a highway in another case. It may be a wetland issue. They're all unique, but we should have our minds open and our hearts open that when somebody comes to us and says, the federal government likes to be the last dollar. They hate to be the first dollar. We never went back and asked for the first dollar. We said, we've already funded the planning. We've done the engineering. We've already put $1 million in this. We just need the underpass, the cruise dock, all of that stuff. We never asked for the first dollar. And I'd be more open to somebody that came to the county and said, look, I've done all this. I just can't get over this hurdle. And then look at the merit of the project, whatever it is, whether it be an employer, whether it be a housing project, and then look at it and have the resources to be able to react to that or be able to access the resources. Could be state funding or grant funding. So I just think we have to be nimble and flexible when we can. And having money in reserve to a degree never hurts.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Rob.
Well, thank you.
Those are the good answers. I appreciate it. I think our watchers and readers will enjoy this interview.
I appreciate the opportunity and congratulations on what you've done. This is great. It's very much needed in the community and much appreciated.
All right. We'll keep it going. All right. Well, thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.